Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I think we'll
Okay,
get started in just a few moments. Wait for a few people to join.
Yeah, if you can write the comment that you can see us and you can hear us, that would be great. And yeah, let's wait a couple of seconds. And I believe, Justin, we can start because I see that people are already joining us. So
Beautiful.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Alrighty. Welcome everyone to the DevSkiller Digital and IT Skills Report 2023 Key Findings and Predictions live webinar. That's a bit of a mouthful. My name is Justin Lestel. I'll be your host for today. I'm very excited to get started. But before we do that, I might bring in and introduce my co-host. I might start with you, Jacob. Can you give us a few words about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm Jakub. As you said, I'm a CEO at DevSkiller, also a founder here, and I'm involved with the digital and IT skills area for around 10 years right now, and I'm happy to share my view and insights about the trends and maybe try to forecast how this area will change in 2023.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. Thanks for that. And Tomasz, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a few words about yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Tomasz. I'm a CTO at DevSkiller. I am doing kind of two jobs here. The first one is still a hands-on developer, so I will be the technical person here, even though Jakub is also a technical person. But anyways, I will give you some more technical insights and trends from what I can tell in our industry. But my second job is also managing people and recruiting people. So also I can give you a little bit deeper dive into what are the overall trends in the industry and how will they change. So here's us.
Yep. Thank you very much for those introductions, guys. Now, we do have a really exciting discussion planned for today. It will be centered around the 5th publication of our Digital and IT Skills Report. That one just got published yesterday. There's also a link to that in the comments. Before we get started, I do recommend downloading that, guys, because we're going to be making a lot of reference to the report throughout today's discussion, and I'll let you know which section we're referring to so you can keep tabs along with us. So today we'll be looking at basically the key findings and predictions from the report. That's going to include the biggest HR and tech recruitment trends from 2022, key technological insights and tech candidate behavioral insights. That's actually collected from customer data that we've collected over the last 12 months. That's how we compiled this report. It's basically from anonymized customer data. We're also going to lay out our predictions for 2023. There's a lot of exciting stuff planned for 2023. And most importantly, we will be saving time for a Q&A session at the end of today's discussion. Please feel free to fire questions in as we go along. We can answer them as we go along, but we'll be answering live questions at the end of today's discussion. So stick around for that, guys. All right, without further ado, let's jump into our first question. I'm going to start with you, Kuba. You've been around since DevSkiller's inception. You've been around for every publication we've done for the Digital Skills Report. But in a few words, what was your biggest takeaway, the biggest trends you've seen in tech recruitment over the past 12 months in 2022?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the tech recruitment and the skills management in general, for me the biggest maybe not a surprise, but I'm happy that more and more people are thinking and talking about the reskilling and upskilling opportunities. So based on how the market looks like right now, that it's pretty hard to find candidates or external candidates in some areas, like for example cloud engineering, like software development, and also considering that we should be more and more focused on closing something that's called the digital skill gap. So we know, and that was really boosted by the COVID pandemic 2 years ago, is that the growth of the usage of the digital skills on our daily basis live. So if you think about teachers in primary schools, they were not they didn't need any particular digital skills 3 years ago, and then on day one they needed to start using Zoom, maybe Teams, to just run their classes. and that was very important. And right now we are like leveraging it to other areas. So not only this, let's say, basic digital skills, but also we see often that our customers or the companies on the world are trying to build their internal job market instead of just trying to buy talents, all over the world on job boards using external candidates, and that's something that is changing. So reskilling and upskilling is the first movement. The second one is that there is louder and louder right now if we talk about the movement to the skill-based organization. So that's what can be compared, in my opinion, to like a movement into the agile world, where big corporations try to be lean and move to the agile product development, not only focus on waterfall model. And right now, the similar thing is happening with the skill-based model. So we are realizing that it's not required to label any single person in the company with a label like it's a senior Java developer and this like a senior reporting specialist. Maybe it's more effective to focus and rely just on the set of skills that these people have, instead of like labeling and looking for people with a given job role if we want to do some work.
Yep. For those of you who are joining on YouTube, you can actually check out a webinar we did at the end of last year that was focused around skills-based organizations. And for those of you who are following the report, the section we're referring to here is patterns and trends in 2022. It's found on page 4 of the PDF version of the report. So you can check it out there to see the full list of trends from 2022. Thanks very much for that, Kuba. Tomasz, I know you've been sitting patiently waiting there. You're our CTO, a Java champion, but I think it might be right to talk about JavaScript. It was again the most popular technology in our database. 23% of DevSkiller tech assessments actually were JavaScript based. What's the reason behind it? Can you give us a few words about why is JavaScript still so important today?
Yeah, I hope all of you by now understand that Java and JavaScript are two totally different things. But yeah, anyways, jokes aside. So there's this famous quote by Jeff Atwood that everything that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript. It is the language of the internet these days. So I am totally not surprised that it just gains more and more popularity. I would expect it to stabilize, but it should stabilize at some really, really high level. So first of all, like, every single web application you look at uses JavaScript. Also, mobile applications are more and more often written in JavaScript or similar technologies. Many companies do not build mobile applications natively, but instead they build web applications that are responsive, which means they still need JavaScript capabilities. Also, quite a few years ago, Microsoft came up with the idea of TypeScript, which is this more strict, easier to follow, easier to learn, or actually harder to learn, but like a less error-prone variant of JavaScript. And I guess this is part of this group as well. So long story short, it's the technology. Like, no matter what happens, probably in 10 years from now on, we'll still be talking about JavaScript. It's here to stay, and I don't see anything on the horizon that can possibly like replace this technology. So, and it's also the first choice when you're doing like tutorials or boot camps, for better or worse, because it's not the easiest technology to learn first. But anyways, there is like a really, really high demand. I am a bit surprised that it keeps growing, but I'm not surprised that overall it's the most popular technology these days, and it's a very safe bet. And also, like, just taking into account that it's absolutely abundant. It's like everywhere. So you will find it in your TV, in your gaming console, of course, in a computer, on mobile. So very safe bet, and definitely something, if you're willing to do reskilling or upskilling, then JavaScript will not hurt probably ever, because that's a skill that's going to be needed like everywhere. So I'm a Java developer, but I still do some JavaScript coding and TypeScript coding because it's so abundant everywhere. So no surprise here at all. And as I said, in 10 years time, we'll be still talking about why JavaScript is so popular, and it still will be. That's kind of my prediction for 2033 or something.
I won't bet here because if you take a look at the architecture of the software systems, there is this like continuous circular movement between like the desktop application, the server applications, and the server client server applications, right? So like I don't know, 20 years ago we were based on the desktop applications, and everything was like based on the local computers installed, etc. Then we moved to the client side, client server applications that were basically like a thin client, so still a desktop application, but a lot happened on the server side. Then we moved for a short period of time to fully server applications, where the front end was served like basically from the server. Right now we are in the middle because if you see, there is a continuous growth of the mobile application, and for me mobile application is like just a new version of the desktop application, so it's a client side. So I won't bet that in 10 years time we won't be like fully focused on developing the applications that uses the native language of the mobile devices like Android or iOS, and JavaScript will be just like some side language used in some areas. But I won't be as sure as you that we will land in the world of the JavaScript everywhere. That would be a nightmare probably.
I wanted so badly to interrupt you because you actually reinforced my arguments, because many desktop applications these days are written in JavaScript. For example, Spotify, Figma, Visual Studio Code. So JavaScript is even more popular than, and I forgot about desktop applications, which are also written in JavaScript these days. But yeah, I see your point.
All right, my money's on Tomasz. You've won me over here with your argument there. Anyway, thanks very much for it, guys. Yeah, as I mentioned, JavaScript was number one this year. It actually overtook SQL from last year. 23%, so nearly like over 1/5 of our tests are actually in JavaScript. That's section 1.1 in the report, page 9. We also make mention of it in terms of the biggest growth contribution to technologies overall on our platform, which was obviously number one as well. That's page 10 if you've got the report there. Okay, I might move along to one of the biggest findings, I think, from the report. You may have already seen this on our social media. We've also, I think this one it's a pretty big number. We're talking about blockchain, and we're talking specifically about year-over-year growth, which is this section where we focus on the technologies that basically had the highest year-over-year growth, like meaning from last year, how many people were testing it to this year. Blockchain was 552% growth, which was actually more than double second place, which is rather interesting. Tomasz, I wonder if you could elaborate on what's the story behind blockchain and its growth this year on DevSkiller.
Right. So I'm actually on the fence here. I'm not really sure what's going on with blockchain. Let me elaborate why. So first of all, it used to be a hot technology like half a year ago or a year ago, simply because blockchains, NFTs, Ethereum, smart contracts, and so on and so forth. However, like a couple of months ago, we had a series of crypto crashes. So NFT crash, crypto markets crashing, and so on and so forth. So I'm wondering what is going on with this data. So I have a few hypotheses here. First of all, maybe companies aren't really that negative about the whole crypto crash thing because they have their own internal use cases for blockchain, for better or worse. So they still need developers, and there's nothing to worry about. So we shouldn't correlate the exchange rate of Bitcoin or Ethereum with the actual demand for developers. So that's one thing. So maybe we shouldn't really look at the market conditions, because blockchain went way beyond the the actual market part. So that's one thing. The second hypothesis is that the recruitment processes aren't following as closely or as fast with the changing markets. So the market is like collapsing sooner or later, but the recruitment processes are kind of following along with some slight delay. So that's why we see this growth, and we shouldn't expect such a big growth next year, contrary to what I just said like a second ago. On the other hand, maybe it's just a base effect, and by base effect I mean that in the previous year we didn't really see that many questions, that many tasks using blockchain. So the explosion we see this year is just based on the fact that there was very little interest last year with the blockchain. So it's really hard to tell for me, and I'm kind of on the fence here. I would not do any bets for the next year or even for 10 years. Absolutely not. But anyways, it's interesting to look at. So my bet, my bet is that we won't see that such a big growth next year, simply because of the base effect. But we will continue to see some growth, because I still see some applications in the enterprise and some startups still using blockchain for reasons different than just transferring money and goods.
Do you believe, Tomkiewicz, that it can also be a reason, because like at DevSkiller we not like work with startups on a big scale, we probably more work with bigger companies. So I'm wondering if it's not like the case that the blockchain was very, very hot like a few years ago, and all of the startups were doing blockchain. It was enough to put blockchain in, like, you know, on the website of the startup, and the valuation was like growing like 4 or 5 times. But then, of course, there were a lot of issues with like this new emerging technology that were resolved these years. And right now, more and more like big and mature companies are moving to blockchain for some areas of their, like, let's say, professional development, because we know that there was a big movement of the ledgers and all of the financial systems to blockchain, which have some like internal guarantees based just on how this technology structures. So I'm thinking if that's not also a reason why we see this huge increase, because the blockchain is being adopted by the more, like, let's say, mature companies that are not necessarily following all of the, you know, buzzwords that are landing on the market.
Yeah, it seems like you're trying to say use a lot of euphemisms here, because essentially we are looking at large and maybe somewhat slow to adopt companies, because these are like most of our clients. So they didn't saw the potential of blockchain like 2 or 3 or 5 years ago, but they are just starting to adopt it. So we see that they are much like further on the adoption curve. And when the market already sees that there's something bad going on with the blockchain, or whatever you call it, and whatever you name this phenomena, they just began adopting it in the market. I don't know, maybe that's the case. I hope not, because it means that they're going to be really disappointed in 2-3 years. So keep that in mind.
I wouldn't say they will be disappointed, because I don't believe that they were not interested in blockchain. They said, okay, it looks interesting, but let's wait and see how the situation will develop, and if this technology will survive or not. And often we like link blockchain with the cryptocurrencies, but basically blockchain is just like a distributed database, right? So anytime when you need this kind of a database, it makes sense. The problem with blockchain that was like a few years ago was that blockchain was used everywhere. So you needed to develop like an application. So let's think about where we can use blockchain, this application, because we need to say that we are based on the blockchain. It was happening as well with AI. So I believe that these are the companies that basically said, okay, so now it's the technology that is ready to be adopted. So that's why there is so big growth. And I believe that this decision made by these bigger companies right now to enter the blockchain area is not like random. So it's not like, yeah, let's pick it up because it was hot 5 years ago, but it was, okay, we know all of the pros and cons of this technology, and right now we can adopt it, because when the new technology is emerging, we know the pros of this technology, but we don't know the cons. The same was happening with microservices. Everyone said, yeah, let's do microservices, they are so cool. And when you ask what are the drawbacks of that, they say there are no drawbacks, they're just crazy, great, etc. And the smarter companies decided, okay, let's wait until they will realize what's wrong with this technology and what's on the minus side, and then we can like adopt it or not. And I believe that blockchain just moved this evolution where we know, okay, it works here, it's perfect here, but it's like very bad idea to use it for this and this and these use cases. And that's why there is this growth of that. There are also people who are like skilled in blockchain. Because the other thing that we need to consider is, like, for example, with Salesforce. Like 10 years ago, when you wanted to hire a developer who is able to work in the Salesforce technology, there were no option to like hire a Salesforce developer, because there were basically no Salesforce developers in the market. So the way where you are doing that, you are looking for skilled Java developers, and you're hiring them based on their Java capabilities, and then you are like upskilling them or reskilling into the Salesforce technology itself. And I believe that a couple of years ago, similar thing was happening with blockchain. So it wasn't like you're not using Java, like I'm looking for a senior blockchain developer, but you're saying we are looking for someone who is like, will be capable of doing stuff with blockchain, but you are not verifying the blockchain skills on the entry level to the company. So I believe that it's like much deeper area and much harder to like realize on how it works. But that's just my like perspective, and it's not necessarily be true, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, just piggybacking on what you said, Kuba, like, it's obviously we're going to see how things shape up this year, but what we know for sure in the last 12 months, we got more requests than ever for blockchain related tasks from customers coming, like both existing and new customers coming into DevSkiller. So perhaps there is some truth to what you're saying, but also we need to see how it all folds out. So I wanted actually to stay on this topic about growth in particular technologies. I'll pass it back to you, Tomasz. The section I'm referring to is 1.2. It's on page 11 of the report, and we're looking at obviously the year-over-year growth of particular technologies. What are some of the other technologies you think that's grew significantly in the past 12 months and maybe will continue to grow over 2023, Tomasz?
Yeah, I'm looking at the report right now, and there's actually nothing surprising apart from blockchain, which exploded. So there's Kotlin, which is mobile development. There's cybersecurity, which is cyber is a ever-growing threat these days. There's Salesforce that we already mentioned, which is one of the first technologies we think when thinking about automation, no code and low code. And then there's like Go, which is typically used for systems programming, language from Google. Data science, Python, already mentioned. JavaScript, not only the most popular, but also growing very, very, very quickly. iOS, so also mobile development, and DevOps, so systems engineering and everything cloud-based. So if I were to focus on any of these, and if I were to choose any technology that I would like to focus on, it's probably data science and Python. We don't see such a big growth with R language, but I believe it's also a pretty safe bet. So we all saw what ChatGPT can do. We actually had a webinar, and we'll have yet another one about ChatGPT in the tech recruitment space in a few weeks. So we also like things like Mid-Journey or Stable Diffusion. So, but these are the pinnacles of the achievements of data science. But if you want to like very quickly upskill in whatever you do right now, just learn the very, very basics, like drawing a trend line, like finding the most common value in the data set. These are like really the basics that will help you to get some insight into data. So in that case, you don't really need to understand Python or R or any other programming language. You don't need to call yourself a data scientist, although it wouldn't hurt. All you have to do is just like look at your Excel spreadsheet, or look at a piece of data where you have a table, and try to come up with something more interesting than just like printing the data or looking at it from a graph perspective. So we see a tremendous growth in such digital skills. So not only data science, but also these like very, 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 very simple things for me, but insanely important when you're actually working with some data, but you're not really a software engineer. So once again, drawing a trend line and like deducting what's going to be the sales trend just by looking at the chart. It seems simple, but it can give you a huge insight into your data. Finding the most common values, looking at like trying to group people or group observations into buckets. So high income, low income, or city center, suburbs, things like that. So looking at the data from a more analytical perspective, these are the things that are definitely in really, really high demand on the market, because we want to base our decision on data. Like every single company likes to be a data-driven company. So from that perspective, I am totally not surprised that these high-level, hardcore programming languages like Python, which are used for data science and artificial intelligence, are on the rise. But don't be afraid of that, and don't jump to the deep waters of like learning about linear algebra and all this stuff. Just try to come up with some insight from any data that you work on a daily basis, even if you're not a software engineer, especially if you're not a software engineer. And this year's report shows exactly that. So that can actually be advice for every single employee. If you're afraid of your job, if you're looking for upskilling, just try to get some insight from any data you have at work. And so automation and getting insight into data. So that's one thing that I would focus on with this part of the report. So the huge rise of the analytical part, and also already mentioned mobile development, JavaScript, and cybersecurity. These are like the fundamental things that are getting traction last year.
Yeah, those ones you just mentioned aren't going anywhere. And certainly about data and analytics, this is not just something that software engineers use. Every single department use. Like myself working in marketing, we're using data every single day to make our decisions for marketing. So, Jakub, did you want to jump in on this, or should we move forward?
No, we can like move forward.
Okay, beautiful. All right, well, thanks very much for that, guys. So this is the first year where we've actually included some insights from our skills management software, which is called DevSkiller Talent Boost. We've got an entire section dedicated to digital skills management. It's section 3. You'll find it on page 19 of the report. And it's a topic that we explore like in depth. We've certainly been looking at it a lot closely over the past few months, and we'll be really focusing on it as we move into 2023. But yeah, Jakub, I was wondering if I could just ask a simple question to you. Why is skills management so important right now?
So I believe it's not like that the skills management is important right now. It was like important like all the time, but right now it's hard to live without this one. So if we are like enforced to reskill and build talents instead of like just buying the talents, like without the proper approach to the skills management, to the trainings, development of the people inside your company, it's basically impossible to resolve this issue and build an effective internal job market. So that's the first thing. The second one is that I've mentioned microservices before. That everyone said, yeah, let's do microservices. They are so cool. And I believe right now the similar movement happens with this like movement to the skill-based operating model. So some companies, like these big companies, decided that they want to be more like startups and be more effective, do not burn time and money. So they decided let's try to be more focused on the skills, instead of just like naming everything, wasting our time on looking for the labels that we can stick to people who are working in our company. And that's something that is also like a microservice. So it looks easy, and it's easy to introduce, but it's hard to master. So it's hard to build an effective skills-based operating model, because there are like many different like problems or smaller issues to resolve. Like, for example, if what the granularity should we use? Is Java a good example of skill, or more like for loops in Java? That's how we should call the skill. Should we say about knowing the Google Cloud, or should we say more about knowing how to configure Kubernetes cluster inside a Google Cloud? So that's the one thing that you need to choose and select if you want to go very deep into that and build this skill model from very small chunks, or maybe from a bigger building blocks. Also, like figuring out if we should focus on just core skills for the employees, or should we focus for everything that is useful for a given job. So if you think about the people who are writing applications in Java, then of course, like knowing the Java syntax is a key skill. It's a must-have skill, because without knowing the syntax of the Java, you won't be able to like develop the applications in Java. However, there are a lot of like additional skills like Java memory management, or garbage collector tuning, or database integration that are not necessarily like required and they are not necessarily a requirement for all people inside your company. I'm trying to avoid saying all Java developers, because we are saying that we want to go out and far from this job-based model. But it's not necessarily that they all need to know how to tune garbage collector. But still, as a company, you probably want to have kind of a repository or inventory of these skills, and you would like to know who can I ask for a support or for help if I will run into the problem with the Java memory management or the performance of this approach. So that's basically how I see that, and that's why this is becoming more and more important, because more companies are trying to do that. They're saying, okay, building the skill repository is not like something that you can do in 2 days. Mapping the job roles that you have right now into the skill-based operating model is not something that is like extremely easy. So more and more people are looking for the solutions and for the products to do that on the internet, and that's why also like this topic is becoming more and more interesting and more important nowadays. So that's how I like explain that.
Yeah. And if we were to take it a step further, like what are the challenges, I mean, that you see on the market, with particularly relating to skills management, even what we have with speaking to our own customers with skills management? Can you elaborate on some of the challenges that are probably going to be, apparent this year?
Yeah, so some of them I've already mentioned. These are like choosing this right approach with this skill management that you want to go. But the other one can be like, for example, like what's the reason why you want to adopt this skill-based operating model? Is it because you want to more effectively use the roles that, or the people that you have inside your company? Is it more because you know that there will be a hiring freeze and you are not able to buy talents on the market, and you still need to develop the product? So you are planning to hire like 20 blockchain developers, and you know that it won't be possible because there is a hiring freeze. So you need to create these 10 blockchain developers from internal resources that you already have on the one. And I believe that there is no something like one single global challenge with this skill-based model, because it really depends on how you want to work with that. There are many different like small issues, like for example, if we are reskilling people or upskilling people, how it affects their salaries, right? We have someone who is right now, let's say, a customer support specialist. This person is learning how to like use automation software. And in couple of months, this person is acting as kind of, I don't know, RPA developer. So robotic automation, and how it affects the salary of this person, how it affects this career path, etc. So these are all of the things that are not like, something that you see on the daily basis. Often when we start cooperation with the customers and we ask, okay, so there are probably some areas that you are not like even familiar they exist, because you need to think about that, you need to think about that, you need to think about that. That's the possible solution to this problem number one. That's the possible solution to the problem number two. But I believe that the biggest challenge, like just summing it up, is that often when you start this journey with the skill-based operating model, you have no idea what challenges you can expect, and that's the biggest challenge so far.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for that. We do only have a couple of questions left before we can move over to our Q&A. So if you guys do have any questions you'd like to ask any one of us, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll get to them as well. If you don't feel like asking them now, you can drop us an email at the email address you see there at the bottom of the screen, or hello@devskiller.com as well, if you can't remember the one there. All right, I'll push it back towards you, Tomasz, if that's okay. I wanted to just talk about one of the findings we had from section 5 in our report, which is actually on page 26 for those of you who are looking at the report. I'm talking specifically about the popularity of tech assessments. We reported basically, again, year-over-year growth in terms of the number and volume of tech assessments being sent out by our customers. And that number's consistently grown over the 5 years that we've been doing the publication. So can you give us a few words as to why you think that this is still such a popular form for screening candidates?
Yeah, just to clarify, we're talking about the average number per customer, how many tests or how many assessments were sent by an individual customer. So one thing that we discovered in our data is that more and more companies are using our tools not to recruit or screen candidates, but also to do some sort of like internal recruitment or skill assessments, and something that Jakub was talking about a few minutes ago. So essentially, the idea is that if you want to map skills of your employees in an existing organization, why would you restore to a kind of a different tool that's than the one you already use and you know that's kind of predictable? So if you already have like an assessment tool at hand, like our product or any other, we noticed that customers are actually using the same stack and the same tool and similar assessments to make sure that or not really to make sure, but to map skills of their employees. So this has several benefits. First of all, they're using the same technology. Secondly, they can verify that their recruitment process is actually somewhat real life. So they are not asking candidates things that are completely unrelated to work. So they can use more or less the same assessments internally. And last but not least, probably the most important part, this is probably the only unbiased and very fair way of assessing your existing employees. It's not prone to being liked or disliked by your manager. It's not a self-assessment, which is always subjective. It is completely. It is on one hand it's completely anonymous, but on the other hand it's unbiased. So you can be more or less sure that you verified skills of your employees correctly. And it's not only because maybe some of your employees will be scared to take part in such a test because it will show that they are not skilled or qualified enough. But on the other hand, very often we notice that we find hidden gems in our inventory of employees, so to speak. So we found employees who are doing front-end development who are actually very skilled at database administration, or vice versa. Or we find people who are actually feel much better at a slightly different technology or domain. So they would rather work in finances, in the finance department, rather than in the product department, and so on and so forth. And it turns out that for software engineers and administrators, operators, whatever, this type of assessments, which is completely objective, they can take their time. It doesn't require any kind of self-promotion or writing like self-assessment documentation, because it often happens in large companies where every quarter or every year you have to talk to your manager and explain why you are such a great employee, why you deserve a rise. But this is just an unbiased way of mapping the skills and finding people who would fit better in a different department, or find people who are best candidates for upskilling. So if you would like to spend your training budget in a best possible way, this is the way to go, because you find people who are the closest to reaching certain skills. Anything else to add, Kuba?
Yeah.
So I believe that what we can say is that with these hidden gems, I like it. And there is like one story that I can share. Basically, some time ago, we had a situation when one of our customers were trying to find a person who will be able to join them as a automation tester for one application. And this application was very, very sophisticated, and they have problems with that. And shortly, it was like a few days after implementing Talent Boost, they realized that there is one person who is working right now with this application, because that's the person who is working in the customer service department. And this person is studying IT, so already knows Python, JavaScript, and some basic technologies. And they were able to reskill this person. Like, they even didn't need to reskill this person, because this person was already skilled. They had just no idea that they have such a person who is studying IT in this department. And they say, okay, so can you join this department to do that? And this person would say, yes, I would love to do that. And even if they had this internal job board, it wasn't working. So it's hard to say why. Maybe this person wasn't like feeling that it's a good moment to do that, or this person is skilled enough to do that. Because often when we see job ads that are on the internet, then usually it's enough to fit like half of the requirements, and you are like still a perfect candidate, because there is kind of more than a wish list than a list of the real requirements that you can have. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I would like to piggyback on what Tomek mentioned about like this internal testing and the self-assessment, because what we also hear when we do the webinars with the like employees that are going to use Talent Boost, and they are like very eager to start testing themselves, just to treat it as a kind of a game, like a challenge. Let's see who will score more. And that's one thing. The second thing is that often when we don't know some technology very deeply, it's hard to say what we don't know already. And then taking a test and selecting that, okay, for example, in this test, they asked me about this and this and this, and I had even no idea that these elements exist in this technology. So that's something that I can learn. So it's great for this, like, self-awareness of the technology, rather than just like the scoring and having a unified level of the skill across the whole company. But still, I agree with Tomek that being able to take a test and say, okay, my Java knowledge is on this and this level, regardless if I like my manager or the manager hates me because I don't do something or don't go to the parties, then it's very, very unbiased. And I believe that that's giving the equal chances to everyone in the company. So it's not important how people are reporting. It's important what you really know and how you can, in fact, work. Just one more thing that I want to cover here is that we are talking because we are really focused as a company on the skills. However, one should not forget that it's not only about the skills, because I can imagine, let's say, perfect employee that have all the skills that are required for the given job, and it's still not performing, because like having the skills, even like from the practical perspective, so I do not only have the skill, but I am able to apply this skill to resolve problems. It doesn't mean I will be good at resolving this problem, because maybe my motivation is too low. Maybe I'm not good like with the soft skills, so I'm not able to, it's also a skill, but yeah, maybe I'm not able to cooperate with some particular team or people, and then my performance is degrading. So it's about the skills that is like the most important area, but experience and behavior, attitude as well. So that's how I will like elaborate on that.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a quick question here as well. Maybe you could answer this, Kuba. It's interesting to know what are the hard skills that are in demand. What soft skills do you think are also in demand right now?
Yeah, so that's very tricky question, because if we talk about the soft skills, we often like mix soft skills and the competencies, right? So if we talk, for example, about assertiveness, if it's a skill or it's a behavior or it's an attitude or it's a competence, so it's hard to say that. Basically, we assume, and that's the general definition, that skill is something that you can like learn. You can read a book about that, and you can like adopt this knowledge. So like being able to forecast weather, it's a set of like skills, but also like an attitudes, logical thing, etc. So I believe right now what's the most important skill, if we talk about soft skills, but it's more a competence, it's like a fast learning. So basically right now, the skills are changing. Even the hard skills are changing very, very often and very, very fast. And being able to learn the new skills and experiment also, this is the most important elements. The average duration of some skills is like 2 or 3 years. So you're learning something, and 2 years later, it's not longer used because there is a new technology or new approach that is overriding what you learned so far. So you need to change, and you need to adapt, and you need to learn. And I believe that being a fast learner, that's the most important element for now. The second one is, of course, like being able to cooperate. So the communication, the dialogue, how you use it, the feedback, these are the most important like soft skills for any single company. And we call it internally as a kind of a meta skills or meta competencies. Because if you can challenge people, but you can challenge it like in a respectful way and in a constructive way, then you are helping other as well as you as the company to grow, to develop, to like move forward. The dialogue as well, if there is miscommunication and you have different point of view than someone else, then having a proper dialogue and like actively listening to the arguments provided by other people, it's something that is helping you to develop, to grow. If I will tell you like, Justin, this one is like I don't know, it's a shit, then I'm not helping you and I'm not helping anyone. If I will say, okay, Justin, you did it, I like it, however, I believe that this can be done in that and that way, and that will be more useful, more clear, etc. You say, yes, that's great, thank you for that, because I wasn't looking at this from that perspective. So yeah, we are growing, we are making it like better, and I will sum it up in that way.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, actually, you mentioned something interesting there about the perishability of skills, which you actually do reference earlier in the report in the introductory section, talking about just how quickly skills are evolving, both hard and soft skills, and all the more reason why you need to be like a quick learner and be able to move with the trends for sure. So appreciate that, Jakub. I was originally going to ask this question to you, but I might go to Tomasz first and then with you Jakub. So yeah, summing up, Tomasz, the final section of the report, we're looking at our outlook, predictions, and recommendations for 2023. You'll find that on page 28 of the PDF. But what are some of the biggest things to expect in 2023 from your perspective?
More massive layoffs, probably. Maybe not even because it's actually reasonable, but because everyone else is doing it. So I would advise against that. If you're a large company, if you just want to lay off people because like it works for you in an Excel spreadsheet that you're going to reduce cost, think instead about reskilling these people. So moving them to a different department, maybe for a lower salary, maybe different compensation. But anyways, you already have the people on board who are comfortable with the culture, who know their way around. So my prediction is that we will have more layoffs. But my advice is to try to find a better place for these people rather than just throwing them on the street and then probably in like 3 months or 6 months just like starting the new recruitment process all over again because the damage was already done. So that's kind of one of my predictions. Regarding the technologies, I wouldn't expect any like a big earthquake here because we definitely know like what technologies are hot right now. Keep in mind that, for example, in the JavaScript land, for the, I believe, 4th time in a row, React is the most popular framework. So it's no longer the case that JavaScript frameworks and libraries are changing like every single day. We do have like a very solid choices right now. So don't be afraid that technologies are changing like over and over again. However, do pay attention more on like what kind of inventory of skills you have in your organization. So what kind of peoples and skills you have, and what can you come up with? With your current headcount, so to speak. So that is my advice, I believe.
All right, I'll pass the mic. Thanks very much for that, Tomasz. I'll pass the mic over to you, Kuba. What are you seeing in the year ahead for 2023?
Yeah, so I agree with Tomek, and basically, like that's why I said that the reason for implementing a skill management in the company depends on what's the reason for that. I believe that right now the layoffs. It's hard to say if these layoffs will be bigger or smaller, because that's something that like we can expect them to be bigger, but it's hard to say if it. I won't bet that it will happen that way, because on one hand, people want to reduce the resources they have internally, but on the other hand, I believe that what they need, in fact, is to change them. So I agree with Tomek. The problem is that right now they are thinking that the grass that is not in your garden is always greener, right? So the problem is that when you see that you have someone in the company that maybe knows Excel, but it's not like a person who is like great at reporting, etc., and then you get a resume or a CV from the person who is saying, I'm perfect at reporting, I'm great, etc. Then you ask this person to prepare one report. It's good. So we say, okay, let's hire this person. But then you can end up with the situation that this person not as perfect as it looked in the CV. And that's like pretty common that CV are selling the person, not necessarily being like 100% right and accurate and true. And then you can also have a misalignment on the culture fit with your company. So I believe that much often than right now, we should think about reskilling and just moving people from one part of the organization to another. And that's also why the skill-based operating model is so effective, because it's looking at the person and the skills of this person instead of a job role. So with the job-based position, you will say, okay, I cannot ask Justin to write a small application for me because he works in the marketing, and marketing is not like involved in the product development. So now don't do that. But if instead of a label like a head of marketing, you will have just a set of skills, you will say, okay, Justin knows Python and knows TypeScript, so it's a perfect person to write this application. Let's just give him a new job, then it will be much more effective. And I believe that will be the movement in the 2023 that we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Well, I think we're basically finished with today's webinar. I'm going to just drop the link one last time in the comments to the full report. So if you guys haven't already downloaded it, you can grab it there. It's available live since yesterday. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us. A big thank you to you, Jakub, and to you, Tomasz, for your insights from today. And also I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who was involved in DevSkiller to help us build this report once again, and obviously to our customers who help us compile the data from what they've been doing over the past 12 months. So yeah, thanks everyone. We will be having our next live event in 2 weeks' time, actually exactly 2 weeks' time. That is again centered around the topic of ChatGPT. There is a very short live recording on YouTube now that you can look at. That was done in late December. We'll be picking that topic up in 2 weeks' time as well. So if you're interested to learn more about ChatGPT and how that is affecting the tech recruitment space, feel free to join us there as well. So one more time, thank you, Kuba, thank you, Tomasz, and thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.